long before the pyramids rose above the desert, before the names of pharaohs were carved in stone. Small communities gathered along a narrow river. From these settlements, a civilization would emerge. But how did it begin? To understand the origins of Egypt, we must begin not with kings, but with geography. Northeast Africa is dominated by desert, vast, unforgiving, and largely uninhabitable. Yet cutting through this arid landscape flows a single lifeline, the Nile River. Each year, the Nile flooded its banks, and when the waters receded, they left behind fertile black soil. This annual cycle transformed a narrow strip of land into one of the most productive agricultural zones in the ancient world. Without the Nile, there would have been no Egypt. But a river alone does not create a civilization. People do. Around 6000 BCE, small groups of hunter-gatherers began settling along the Nile Valley. These early communities were not yet Egyptians as we imagine them. They lived in simple dwellings. They farmed barley and wheat. They domesticated cattle. Archaeological evidence from sites such as Badari and Nakada shows gradual but significant development. Pottery became more refined. Tools became more specialized. Trade networks began to form. What makes the pre-dynastic period remarkable is not a sudden leap, but steady transformation. Over centuries, small villages began to resemble organized societies. But something changed. Around 4000 BCE, growth accelerated. Why? Archaeologists have discovered increasingly elaborate burials from this period. Some graves contain simple pottery. Others contain finely crafted goods, jewelry, and imported materials. This suggests social hierarchy. Not everyone was equal. Some individuals held power, wealth, or influence. But how did this hierarchy form? One possibility is agricultural surplus. When food production becomes reliable, societies can support specialists, craftsmen, traders, administrators. Another factor may have been competition. As settlements expanded, access to fertile land became increasingly valuable. Conflict likely followed. Gradually, stronger communities absorbed weaker ones. Power began to consolidate. One of the most fascinating aspects of pre-dynastic Egypt is the emergence of symbolic imagery. On pottery and ceremonial objects, we see recurring motifs: boats, animals, standards, human figures in ritual scenes. These are not random decorations. They represent identity, power, belief. Some scholars argue that this symbolic system laid the foundation for hieroglyphic writing. Writing did not appear suddenly. It evolved from visual communication. And this evolution suggests something profound. Pre-dynastic Egyptians were not primitive. They were developing abstract systems of meaning. Religion also became increasingly central. Graves were oriented carefully. Bodies were positioned deliberately. Grave goods implied belief in an afterlife. The spiritual world was already taking shape, long before the Great Pyramids. Pre-dynastic Egypt was not isolated. Artifacts revealed trade with regions far beyond the Nile Valley. Obsidian from Ethiopia, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, materials from the Levant. This indicates organized exchange networks. Trade does more than move goods. It moves ideas, technologies, artistic styles, political concepts. Egypt was forming within a larger, interconnected world, and this interaction may have accelerated its development. By 3200 BCE, competition between regional powers intensified. Archaeological evidence suggests conflict. Some artifacts depict scenes of domination, bound captives, victorious leaders. One object in particular stands out, a ceremonial palette showing a ruler wearing two different crowns. This may represent the symbolic unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. Traditionally, a king known as Nama is credited with this unification around 3100 BCE. But the process was likely gradual. Unification was not a single event. It was the result of centuries of consolidation. The Predynastic period was ending. Dynastic Egypt was about to begin. Here lies the central question. How did loosely connected farming communities transform into one of the most enduring civilizations in history? There was no single invention, no sudden revolution. Instead, there was accumulation, agriculture, trade, symbolism, conflict, leadership, each element reinforcing the others. Yet even with modern archaeology, many details remain uncertain. We do not fully understand how early leaders gained legitimacy. We do not know exactly how writing transitioned into formal hieroglyphs. We cannot pinpoint the precise moment when Egypt became a unified state. History does not always provide clear beginnings. Sometimes civilizations emerge gradually, almost imperceptibly. Modern culture often surrounds ancient Egypt with mystery, lost knowledge, hidden technologies, otherworldly explanations. But the real story is perhaps more impressive. It is a story of human adaptation, of communities responding to environment, of innovation born from necessity. Pre-dynastic Egypt shows us that great civilizations do not appear overnight. They grow slowly, through countless small decisions made by ordinary people, farmers along a river, craftsmen shaping clay, leaders consolidating power. Over generations, these choices created a state that would endure for millennia. By the time the first pharaohs ruled, the foundations had already been laid. Political structures were in place. Religious beliefs were established. Trade networks were functioning. Symbols carried meaning. The pyramids would come later. The monumental architecture, the golden masks, the grand temples. But the true beginning of Egypt lies here, in the pre-dynastic period, a time before kings, before empires, before monuments, a time when a river shaped a people, and a people shaped history. The origins of Egypt were not sudden. They were gradual, and in that slow emergence, we find something far more fascinating than legend. We find the beginning of civilization itself. This marks the beginning of our journey into the forgotten chapters of history. Discover what shaped the world we know today. If you found this exploration meaningful, consider subscribing to Obsidian Archives. There are many more stories waiting to be uncovered. Follow us on Instagram for exclusive visuals, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. History is not a collection of myths. It is a record of human decisions. And this is only the beginning.